Hey guys, I'm Samcrac, and it's time we finish our Porsche 911 rebuild project, which means we've got to knock out that body work and paint blending in the passenger side quarter panel, something that I've got little to no experience with, but thanks to you guys at home in the comments section, and of course some other YouTube tutorials, I'm a YouTube certified body man. So we're going to see how far that goes on our problem area over there. Before we get to the body work though, this is, of course, a German car, and it's old, so we've got to deal with an old German car problem.
Starting off with one of those over-engineered German problems on the 911. Coincidentally, Mike is doing an oil change on the Corvette while we're running into this issue. So let me show you something that they do on a lot of American cars that seems to make a lot of sense. Down here, you've got a hood release latch. You pull it, there's a wire that runs to the hood, and it pops it right open. Simple as that. Now, on a lot of German cars, what they seem to be doing is making this process all electronic. This car, remember, is like 19 years old. So if we come in here, the way you release the hood latch is with this electronic button right here. Now, a lot of you guys were asking me about the hood gaps in the front of this car last video, and that's because I've been working with this car with the hood popped open a little bit. The way it works on Porsches, or Porsches, however you like to say it, is that the hood pushes down, and then you put your palm right here and you close the hood all the way. You don't slam it shut. And my battery isn't dead, but it's disconnected, so it's about as good as dead. They give you this little post here in the fuse box, that red little post that I've got my positive cable connected to here. The problem is this was designed with jumper cables in mind, and nobody uses jumper cables. They use battery jumper boxes. So I've got my hot post connected to the battery jumper box, my ground wire connected to a jumper cable that runs all the way over here, and this is where your ground is supposed to be, right here on the door catch. So now we turn on our battery jumper. We hit the button that allows you to jump a car, but there's no way you could jump a car with it just going through this little post here. And I mean, there's not even any power to the dash, but it should give you enough power to do this. And here the latch is clicking. But something decided to break in between all of this, and now my hood latch is stuck shut.
We really lucked out here. When I was reattaching the front bumper, I left one of the screws off the bumper that bolts it to the body of the car. That area where I left the screw off, that's where our emergency release latch was. So I was able to pull that section of the bumper forward. We were able to just grab the emergency release latch and pull it open. Now, it started raining right after we got it open. We connected the battery and moved it back into the barn. And another funny thing is when the battery is disconnected, these frameless doors that pop open when you open them, well, they don't pop open when there's no battery power to the car. So the door was open, so we really avoided a disaster here, having to run around in the rain and tape off the door and all that sort of stuff. And all we got to do is replace this hood actuator cable. It's a $65 part from the dealership. I'm glad that it broke now, so that it's good for another 100,000 miles.
In between replacing our actuator, I ran out and I got the brand new front shorter tires mounted. So this car is ready to be driven, but I want to finish it. And this is what is keeping this car from being finished. Right here is where we had a major dent. This was pulled out and then I filled it. We've got a couple little dents that were in this area. And then if you look on an angle, there's 3 more dents in the vicinity here. So I'm thinking of actually blending most of the way up here. If I don't feel comfortable doing it, I'll go and I'll paint most of the quarter and blend it into the pillar. But I'm hoping I can get away with blending this somewhere around here and probably maybe all the way to the top. So we're gonna start by just knocking out these 3 dents. There's one right here, and then one right down there. This is the bad one. I'm gonna spot fill those first, and then we can go on to our next step. is the first time I've done this, so my methodology is probably not 100% correct, but we've got 2,000 grit in this strip right here, a couple inches wide. Then we go over, this is all 600. We're gonna paint all the way to the top here. And then down here, this is all also 600, but underneath it is 400, then 320, then 180, especially in these areas with the little dent touch-ups. We ran out of sunlight last night, but as you can see, I've pulled back a lot of the newspaper and stuff. I just didn't want any primer making its way over this way. We're gonna change gears a little bit. So I'm thinking instead of blending, you know, right here, let's move things over. Let's just blend the entire quarter and blend into the pillar. That'll make our job quite a bit easier, and it should look a bit better when it's done. This is all sanded and good at this point. This is really nice, but we've got to sand the rest of our quarter up to here and then set that up for blending and then tape off the back half of the car. Keep up those angry comments in the comments section. I know you're losing your mind watching me paint this outside, but the blend is going really good. Now our texture coat on the bottom doesn't exactly match the texture coat that was from the factory, and I'm not sure what we could do at this point to fix that except for find a different texture coat. Although from here, you know, which is only a couple feet away, it all looks textured and the line is really nice. So I'm gonna keep that as is. Now, this, again, all looks pretty good. It's when we come up here that I made a nice mistake, which, you know, is to be expected at this point. I don't know if you can see that circle right here. It's tough to see on camera, but that is one of the spot fills that I did not primer, and so that's my fault. No joke, this was the last little bit of base coat to go and fill in the primered area that I touched up here, and you could see when you get really close. No, these aren't bugs. This was gunk from the gun.
Our issues were corrected pretty easily, and I finished the blend process with just one more light layer of base to make sure nothing was showing under our problem areas. Now the actual blend process is when you clear the rest of your panel past where you painted any of the base coat. And since I was running against the clock and I risk running out of daylight, and if you run out of daylight and have to wait till the next day, well then you got to re-prep the surface, and a lot of times you got to scuff everything down. So I put the camera down and just went to work, and you'll see that I cleared the entire quarter panel and blended up to the bottom of the pillar.
So next day, I've let the clear coat harden, and you can see it's extremely textured. Here's factory paint. I know it's all wet, and here is how dull it looks because of the texture. Now the nice thing is, if you remember when I painted the bumpers, they came out pretty textured too. I'm still trying to figure out exactly what I'm doing right or wrong with the gun, but I'm pretty confident by the time I'm done wet sanding this and polishing it out, it's gonna match the rest of the car just fine. So we're starting with 1,000 grit because the texture is so heavy. We'll move up to a 2,000 grit, and then we'll try and polish it in, and I think it will look great. Now down on the bottom, you can't see because it's so dirty. The rocker actually looks really nice, and since it's a textured rocker, you know, there's not a lot of sanding we're gonna have to do down there to blend it in. So let's cross our fingers and hope this turns out great. All right, I've sanded and compounded and sanded again, and really things are looking pretty good. Now I've taped off some of the areas that have very minimal issues with the clear coat, and I want to just sand those issues out. And I'm pretty confident that after just one more pass, we're going to again go 1,000, 2,000 grit. Once we're done with that, compound those areas. This is going to be ready for a polish, and then what we're going to do to kind of match everything is we'll cut and polish the rest of the car on this side just for right now, but I plan to end up cutting and polishing the rest of the car. So fender, door, and then the pillar here, and this should look basically brand new. This is why I rebuild cars. When you put them back together, when all of the parts are on, and it actually looks like a car you'd see on a dealership lot, but you know that you spent a lot less than that. That is the best feeling, the best part. Now, huge disclaimer, this car is in need of a full paint correction all around, even on the quarter panel right here, which is looking quite a bit better than the rest of the car. Now, it's not perfect, but it definitely looks and matches really good. Check out our blend line here. If you get really close and you look at the right angle, you might be able to see it. Can you see it? Can you see it? It's right there. But when you step just one step away, it's gone. Again, looks really good. When we get this whole bumper polished out, it should match everything way better. Same thing with the door. You can see the swirls, the holograms, but look at how good this all came out. I'm really thrilled, and I cannot wait to get this thing on the road and drive it.
I'm really pleased with how the 911 turned out, given that I have little to no bodywork experience whatsoever, and that the job was done completely outside. Now, the last thing we have to do is take this car on the road and give it an official test drive. But as you can see by the rain, this is not 911 test drive weather. So we're gonna have to wait until next time to do that. And while we're at it, I'll give you a full cost breakdown what this car cost me from beginning all the way to the end. Now, if you enjoyed this one, be sure to give it a huge like, and if you're not already following me on Instagram, you can go right here or just click the link in the description box below. I posted a lot of pictures as I was working on that quarter panel on Instagram before anything went live here on YouTube. Guys, I want to thank each and every one of you for watching today. I'll catch you very soon.